Hello, welcome to the build guide for the Asari Adept. This is going to be a melee build, so I apologize in advance for that. I get that there are a lot of melee and sniper builds out there right now, but sometimes it's just a really good way to build a character, and this is one of those cases. So we'll start at the bottom here, take a look at Barrier. In rank 4, this is going to be identical to the Huntress if you watch that build guide I already had up. Taking the max shields here because we're going to be getting our shields back through other means that are not the natural delay. Rank 5, we're not going to need the max shields with the biotic effect because we're going to be getting shields back every time we melee and doing more damage with said melee. In rank 6, saving barrier is going to be one of the keys to keeping you alive because this class is a little on the squishier side. And active barrier is not really going to be benefiting you since you're not getting most of your kills from biotics anyways, so saving barrier is definitely the better choice there. Offensive biotics. In rank 4, I'm sure other people are going to want to go with recharge speed. Go ahead. I just prefer power enhancement just because of the Annihilation Field. I kind of like having that do a little bit more damage and getting more force on my throw, but if you want to go with efficiency, that's totally cool. Go for it. Rank 5, this is going to be one of the big differences between the Adept and the Huntress in that the Adept has exposure here, which makes enemies take additional damage from all sources when they're under the effect of biotics. The Huntress has additional melee and weapon damage. I play my Adept, again, as a melee character. Some people play it as like a combo character, but that's not the way I do it, so exposure is definitely the better choice over combo detonation, but even aside from melee builds, it's usually going to be the better choice anyways. In rank 6, since this is a melee build, we're not going to need the biotic damage and force, so go with the one that increases our melee and weapon effectiveness. Lance versus throw is one decision you're going to have to make with this character. If you find yourself really partial to Lance, go ahead and take it. It's not going to make or break the build. I just am a huge fan of throw, and I prefer having, depending on the way you spec throw, you can either get a 6 or a 7-second recharge, whereas Lance, even with the only recharge ability or recharge talent you have access to, it's only going to go down to 9 seconds, and the damage with all the damage abilities is only going to go up to like 480 or 490 something. So I don't feel like it's that significant for the investment that you get, as well as you don't really need the knockdown because of other reasons we'll be getting into shortly. So I prefer going with throw, so let's just go over that quick. In rank 4, I prefer the damage and force over the radius. If you find yourself partial to the radius, go ahead and go for it. It's not really going to make a huge difference. I prefer the damage and force though. In rank 5, duration, however, I would never really recommend for this spec at all. Go for the recharge speed, it's definitely better. In rank 6, this is another one where you really have a choice, so a lot of options here really. Swift detonation is going to be a consistent benefit. You're always going to benefit from the recharge and the slightly increased combo damage, whereas double throw is going to have more situational usefulness. If you have two targets that you can detonate next to each other, that's going to be a big damage increase, as well as being able to stagger two. However, you're not going to always have two targets available, and there's this weird thing where when you have double throw, the best way I can explain it is that the trajectory that the projectile leaves your hand changes, and I definitely prefer the way it comes out of your hand when it's a single projectile as opposed to two. That being said, I just think it's a lot of fun getting two explosions, so right now I have double throw, but definitely go either way. And then Annihilation Field. This is the other thing that's really going to separate this from the Huntress, in that the Huntress has Stealth Grid and the Adept has Annihilation Field. Stealth Grid is going to be a better defensive option in certain cases. This is going to be better in other cases, and again, the damage increase is going to be better or worse in situations, different situations for each. In rank 4, go for Radius. If you watch the gameplay video I have linked in the description, I actually have recharge penalty because I accidentally spec'd the character wrong, but you might not notice that if I didn't say anything. But either way, go for Radius. It's better to have it affecting targets sooner and have the possibility of affecting more targets at a time. Rank 5 damage attractor, another source of increased damage from all sources, going to help both you and your teammates. And now that I've gone over both, I just want to mention that when you're considering things like additional melee damage versus things like this where enemies take additional damage, um, this is a separate multiplier. So increased you're gonna have like more increased melee damage on your Huntress than you will on this character on paper. But because of enemies taking more damage and because of that being a separate multiplier, you actually do end up hitting really, really hard with this character. So anytime you're debating whether to increase the damage of a singular attack or ability versus being able to make enemies take more damage, just keep in mind that even if it's a smaller amount on the debuff, that's gonna potentially be a bigger damage increase. So, I don't know if a lot of people knew that or not, but I think this is the first time I've explained it. So, rank 6 here. Um, Restoring shields to all enemies is definitely cool, but I like Vortex because you have to consider that shields are pretty easy to drop, especially with this character. So you're going to be dropping shields really, really fast, and then that's going to turn them into an unshielded and unarmored target. So normal enemies and very quickly shielded enemies are both going to be affected by Vortex, not going to be able to attack you at all, and Draining Field, like restoring shields, although it's going to affect every enemy you kill, the only time you're getting more benefit from this as opposed to Vortex is going to be when you're fighting armored targets because you're going to get health back on those, whereas Vortex couldn't ever lift them. So because there's two enemy types that Vortex will really benefit you from, and only one that Draining Field will affect that you don't also get a benefit from Vortex, that makes Vortex the better choice. Plus it's really cool, so gotta have style points there. So basically, the way you play the character is very similar to the Huntress. You'll use Throw to stagger, or Lance potentially as well. Lance also being a weak ranged damage option. But your goal is to get into melee range, hit like a truck, and get everything floating in the air with Annihilation Field. You're also going to make the enemies take more damage from your teammates, as well as priming them all, so that's also going to help your team. And just keep in mind, you are going to be kind of squishy, especially since the patch. This is one of the classes that it's harder to constantly melee with. It's not the duelist, it doesn't have the iframes. But there is like little dodging techniques that even I'm still perfecting that you can definitely get used to work around it. So the patch didn't break melee classes at all. It's definitely still useful. For boosters, I would definitely have a strong recommendation for a strength enhancer. And for my second one, I like the Cyclonic or whatever it is mod. The second slot's not as important, but because the class is a little squishy, I like to take that for a little bit more defense. For your weapon, I guess in my opinion, the only two choices are between the Scattershot and the Equalizer. I already use the Equalizer a lot, and the Scattershot's really cool, so it looks really, really awesome with an Asari character. So the reason you want to pick one of those is because they've got the melee mods, obviously, and unlimited ammo, so you don't have to worry about reloading or running to ammo crates. You can just focus on your meleeing. And then obviously a Juggernaut shield for your equipment. So this is a pretty powerful class. Definitely one of the higher tier classes. It's not overpowered though, so I think it's just in a pretty good place. There's a gameplay video linked in the description. I don't think there's anything I'm really forgetting to say, so thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.